Welcome back to another week of the RTF Show. It has been a couple weeks since we last joined you, but not much has changed. It's still me, your host, Michael Rose, with his brother John. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing okay. I can't really complain. Uh, nice weather here in Portland. It's rained like once in the last 2 weeks and just 75 or so in the afternoon, as long as the forecast goes. So fantasy wise, not great, but you know,
Yeah, the weather's been beautiful here in Chicago as well. Fantasy football is a whole other matter, and unfortunately, we're not here to talk about the weather. We've got a big show today. We got a lot to get to, but we got a special treat right off the bat.
ooh, as like the Gen Z kids are saying, a little treat, Have you heard that? That's
No,
what they're.
no,
Oh, like you treat yourself like a little coffee or a little cookie or something whenever you do something hard, which is like every day.
I'm
So they say
confused.
a little
So
treat.
Gen Z invented the word treat?
No, but just like you get a little treat. It's like a thing. I don't know. It's on the
Oh.
TikToks, man.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, I'm 40 now, John. So I'm
You are.
decidedly not with it.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's
I,
that's right.
you
Yeah.
know,
We
I was
did
with it
mention that on
once,
the
but
yeah.
whatever it was has changed, and I'm no longer with it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's not your fault. It's
no, it's those
it's the
damn kids.
it's the kid's fault.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
those damn
Yeah.
36-year-olds. All right.
So hip and so
Let's
cool.
let's just jump into it. We got a big guest here today. We don't know how long he can join us, so we're gonna bring him on right now. We got a bunch to get to that we'll get to later, but it is our pleasure to introduce the newest member of the league.
Mhm.
Um, joined the league with in typical RTFL fashion, joined the
Oh,
league in a bit of a haze right as we were pulling up to the auction. Um, but it is none other than Mr. Doug Hoffman. Um, he's with us now. Doug, how
hey.
you doing, buddy?
Doing all right.
Great to
Uh,
see you, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey,
I don't know how this is gonna go or how long this is gonna last, so apologies in advance if I just step away.
is
all
he
good.
sleeping? Looks like he's sleeping right
He's
now.
he's awake. He just ate, but I don't know
Oh,
how long.
Ah,
those. Okay. All right.
I
Well,
love it.
we'll try
Would you
not to
like to
get you.
introduce him first? Of course.
Me?
Well,
No, your son. Would you like to introduce your son?
Oh yeah, this is little Ethan
Aw.
Thomas.
what's up, Ethan? How's everything going, man? It's all good. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's
Yeah,
good.
everyone's good. No one's sleeping. It's great.
Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah, I
How
forgot about those
how
times.
has Benji been handling the
He's
you
been
know?
doing good. Last night he like was up from 2 to 4, like which was like a
Okay,
nightmare for everybody. But other than that, he's been good. So
good,
for the most
good.
part, pretty good.
Yeah.
Excited to be the big brother. Show the
He
little
still
guy
doesn't
around.
really understand. He's
Yeah,
interested in the baby, but has no idea of like what's really going on. But
yeah, yeah. Doesn't
yeah,
realize that this other guy is here to stay for a while.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. We will, we'll try not to keep you too long, and obviously, if you got to jump off at any point, go for it.
Yeah,
We don't expect you to podcast through a crying baby, um, but we
I
both
mean,
would.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
um,
but I don't know if that really means much because, like, on one end for us is someone who's consistently in the bottom, lowest tier of the league, and then on the other side, it's the top tier of the league. So,
okay,
like,
I mean, being
Yeah.
new, I can have my guesses on who's in which bucket, but um,
Uh, I resent the slander, and I'm not going to take the time to defend myself right now.
Mm.
Doug, you joined the league under some pressure, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. I guess haze at the day before the auction. In typical RTFL fashion, we do things last minute. Um, how I just wanted to get your perspective on the auction, the start of the season. How has it been going? Has it been difficult to figure out? Was that your first auction draft? What are your impressions so far?
that was my first auction draft for football. So it was a little tough to kind of pick up. There were certain guys I wanted to go for, like I wanted to spend money on like Derrick Henry and Saquon, and then as it kind of got up there, I kind of got cold
Yeah.
feet and found out maybe a little too early than I should have because I had money left over at the end.
Hmm.
But I mean, I'm like happy with my team. I got a lot of depth, I think. So I'm doing all right. Definitely would have changed my strategy a little bit for next year, but it was a learning experience.
I think
Did
you hit
you?
on so many people in your draft. I'll say that like right off the bat. Like you got Daniels, Harrison, McBride, uh like Ford looks okay. Deontay Johnson, getting Deontay Johnson, at this point now, like looking at the draft when it was happening, I think you obviously had some reservations and paying up on certain guys, but like looking back now, 4 weeks later, it's like you were right on
Genius,
quite a few of these. So
yeah.
Yeah, the I just realized I was looking at the wrong. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Okay. All right. I was in another league's sleeper looking at Doug's other team, being very confused.
Another great
Okay.
team as well. So I mean, I get it.
Yeah. Um, let me pull up Doug's team here, and we'll take a look at it on the screen. But yeah, did you have so you joined literally the day before the draft. I called you while you were on a boat. Did you have time to kind of prepare a strategy? Did you have a strategy going in, like stars and
No, I mean,
studs and duds, or
I mean, up with all the football news in the off season, but I had no strategy at all. I did want to kind of go for a couple big names,
Mhm,
but it was hard for me to kind of grasp. All right, if I spend whatever, like $60 on one of these guys, what does the rest of my team kind of look like?
mhm.
So it was a little bit more conservative with that. But there were guys that I thought I could get maybe kind of cheap. Also, it was kind of a little different for me going for like a 12-team league. The other leagues I'm in are usually like 16 or 14. So someone who I thought maybe
Mhm,
was like a solid starter in a 16-team league, like is maybe like a bench player that might not see your starting
mhm,
roster at 12. So I should have been a little bit
mhm.
more aggressive on some of the bigger names, but I think like a deep team is just a matter of, these guys hold up.
Did
yeah, and this
you go ahead, John?
oh yeah, and it's a little bit different kind of strategy because you want to try and find value in some of these younger guys, right? So that you can offer contracts at a reasonable price. So it's like that balance of going out and getting big names while also like waiting a little bit to try and hit later in the draft on a guy like, and Marvin Harrison's not a great example because he was kind of always gonna be the guy, but offering a contract to some of the younger guys, or maybe even Bijan Robinson or Brian Robinson or something, or Jaden Daniels for sure. That's a really great
Yeah,
example there.
Daniels
So
turned out great. I mean, I kind of took like a flyer like Keon Coleman, thinking like, I did sprinkle in
Mhm.
some young cheap guys, but he's been, pretty terrible to start. Maybe that changes, but
yeah, that's
Did
Buffalo.
you? Yeah, I was gonna ask. I mean, that was kind of the question I was gonna ask is, did you have time, or kind of did you feel like you were able to factor in the idea of the contracts into your auction as
uh
you were doing it, or not really?
Not a ton. I've
Mhm,
basically been taking like I want to win now this year,
mhm.
and as I kind of pick this up, I'll see what happens with contracts and stuff. But not really many of my moves aside from like Coleman was thinking about next year really, and
Yeah,
I mean I guess Harrison too, but Harrison's like a stud now. So
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's an
Um,
obvious keeper for 3 years at any price, and then but Daniel seems to be. I mean, what an incredible find there. It's difficult with quarterbacks to keep them for that long, but
yeah, I mean, if Ken would have bowed out, with Kyler Murray to me, then I wouldn't have even had Daniels. I just went after him because I needed a quarterback.
yeah,
yeah, that was
yeah.
a crazy bidding war. Were you guys together at the
No,
draft, or
I
had you guys
mean,
separated at that point?
yeah, so we were together like for the week fishing, but then he was back in Brooklyn and I was at my place, so we weren't together for the draft or anything. And we didn't talk really before, so I didn't know that he was in on Murray. But once we kind of went back and forth, I was like, all right, I know this is not going to end until one of us kind of takes
Yeah,
a knee.
it was a classic. It seemed like it's just a classic bid up between brothers there. Neither one
Yeah, I
wanting to
mean
back
it was
down.
the same thing with like Derrick Henry and Saquon. Like as I realized it's going maybe higher than it should, then I was just like, all right, I'm gonna bow out and like look for somebody else.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. Kelly mentioned the same thing where she was in a room with like Jake and Peter were over at her house and they just kept bidding each other up because it was funny and they were in the same room. And she's like, I'm never drafting again with these guys.
Did I wanna get into the trade that you made. Um, you had oh shit. That is not what I meant to pull up. Um, you made a trade earlier this season. Oh, I realize it's in the league chat. That's where it would be. I don't even know how to do this on here.
I'm
Um,
glad you're fumbling around a bit because I'm still getting used to sleeper. I'm like, I don't know how to get to all this stuff.
honestly, it's we have Doug and I are in another league together. Actually, John is in it as well with Sleeper. So I use that to poke around. But even a year into this now, it is hard to kind of
Like if you,
navigate.
I emailed a screenshot of the trade if you wanted to
Oh,
do
perfect. Okay. Uh,
it'd
let's
be in the
do that.
Gmail.
But in the meantime, um, tell us a little bit about how that trade came about, how you're feeling about it thus far.
Yeah, so taking over, obviously, I didn't know who was going to be on my team. And I really only had Tyreek Hill that was capable. And I'm really
Mhm.
not a fan of Tyreek Hill at all. More so
Yeah,
off-field stuff. I don't think he's a great human being, so it's tough for me to root for him.
yeah.
So I wanted to move him like before the season started, but my wife was very pregnant, and there was a lot going on. So
Mhm.
we actually Ethan arrived week one on that Sunday. So I was watching like from the hospital room all this stuff with Tyreek Hill going on beforehand. And I was like, oh god, this trade value's going down. But then he had a great game. I was like, all right, maybe the trade value's back up. But I didn't really have time to like poke around people's rosters and really reach out much.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
when I did, I kind of just sent out, I think I had 3 or 4 offers out to different teams.
Mhm.
And then I saw someone reacted in the chat like, "Oh, what a trade!" And I was like, "Oh, what got accepted?" Like I didn't even know what happened yet because I had a couple different like options out there. And then I saw his Bijan. I was like, all right, yeah, I'll take that.
Okay. I like that. I like that. Are you feeling positive about it right now? I know Bijan is playing actually as we're speaking.
Yeah,
And
it's been a high scoring game, but he has not done any of the scoring yet.
yes, hasn't done much to this point.
Yeah,
Are you
yeah. I mean, I
still
think his
feeling
best.
positive about it?
I am. I think he's like a freak athlete. I think his best football still kind of ahead. They've had some tough matchups too against some good defenses. So I
Hmm.
think he's gonna, have those games where he does explode. And like with Tyreek Hill, not a fan of him, and with Tua going down, like I just don't think that offense is gonna look very good. And then with Ramondre,
Yeah.
I liked to start, but then that game when they get behind right away, that's kind of what you fear was
Yeah.
just them playing from behind and him just kind of being erased from the game. So I like the trade. I'd still do it, again now.
Did you, so, yeah, I mean, I think the most surprising thing to me is that this trade went through after Tua had been injured. Correct? It was, I think, the
Yeah,
same
it was.
week that he had his concussion and should probably just stop playing football at this point. But I mean, yeah, these are obviously questions maybe better targeted at Bill, but did you think you had any shot of moving Tyreek once Tua went down? I mean, were you
No,
surprised?
which
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
okay,
I was kind of surprised, which is why I sent out whatever 3 or 4 trade offers, hoping for something.
hmm
And if not,
hmm
like at least like a counter offer, to get something moving. Just
yeah.
I think he's kind of tapped out.
I was just wondering, I guess, like, were you willing to take I mean, I think you got pretty good value here, obviously, for
Yeah,
Tyreek,
yeah, 100%.
especially
Yeah.
given the situation. I guess I was just wondering, were you willing to take kind of pennies on the dollar for Tyreek, given the Tua situation,
Yeah, I kind of
just to move
wasn't
off of him?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't know. Well, I was kind of hoping he would have a good game and like, all right,
hmm
his value bumps up a bit. Um, but so I didn't know. If all these offers were rejected, I probably would have waited another week and hoped for a good game and like see if I could, get something. But
Yeah.
luckily
Yeah.
one of them was accepted. So
Yeah, I thought it was a great trade for you. I mean, getting Bijan right, that's incredible value at the contract price that he's at. It's still probably, if you extend him for another, 2 years, if you extend for 2 years, it's still probably cheaper than what he would go for in the auction. So I thought that was great. And Tyreek Hill, yeah, the value I feel like was lowered after Tua, but then at the same time, he is still under contract for one more year after this. So that value is still there. It's just not necessarily this year, right? So
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
I don't know
For
why
sure.
Bill did the trade though, when I was looking at his roster after the trade. He had quite a few wide receivers, capable wide
hmm
receivers, but there was no RB2 for him. And he traded away his
Yeah, that
RB1
was
for
the
a,
that was the confusing thing to me as well. But those are
yeah.
questions for another owner. All right. Let's move on. So well, John, what direction do you want to go? I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the league in general, but we can go, kind of look closer at Doug's team if you want to. What do you?
Yeah, I think I mean obviously he's in my division, so it'd be interesting to look at, some of our division opponents and sort of get Doug's take on sort of where the division stands. I think, you know, as of right now, I believe we're the only team with each team having more than 400 points scored uh on the season, which I think is a pretty good indicator that, our division is probably the most even, not top heavy. It's probably the strongest division all around. So it'd be interesting to get some of Doug's take on some of our teams in that division.
yeah, it's definitely the first 3 weeks were pretty brutal. The one week I got a win against Pete in week 3, which neither of us did very good. But
Mhm.
I was like, as long as I could get 1 and 2 out of those first 3 weeks, I'd feel okay. Then I had Mike, which is obviously a layup because he's terrible. So getting to 2 and 2 was nice. And then you get to play everyone in the league once, and then your division mates twice. Like, so the schedule works out pretty good that way. You kind of
Mhm.
get to play everybody, but I mean, I don't know. I'm just hoping to stay like somewhere in the middle and just have a shot at getting into the playoffs.
Be honest
Yeah,
with me, Doug. You were sweating it a little bit, weren't you? You were
Absolutely, I
sweating.
was
You
so embarrassed because It was a lot tighter than I would have thought. You had a good week.
I know, I know. Yeah, I thought I had a real shot at getting you, but alas, it was not meant to be. Um, yeah, I think you guys definitely have the kind of all around maybe strongest division. I think all four of the teams are playoff teams, kind of if everything goes well, um, and you avoid injuries. I think in terms of the top of the league, I think I'm a big fan of Steve's team. I think Jake's team is incredible. So I do think that division kind of has maybe the two or three best teams, and Kelly's team has been off to a great start. But
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
Kelly's team
agree with
could get
that.
better with Rashi Rice getting hurt. She's got Kelsey and Worthy. Like, if I
Yep,
play her this week, like those
yeah,
guys both probably get a bump with Rice going down.
yeah, yeah, and Derrick Henry has just been unbelievable. The the peanut division, I think, is extremely top heavy. At least I like Alex's team a lot. Bill's team is pretty much done for the season. No shame in that, Bill. So is my team. But yeah, I would agree. You guys have the best division all around. John, do you see yourself being able to come back and win this division? You're in a bit of a hole right now. Are
Yes,
you,
I think so. But
is
it's
is this a
I
make or
think I'm
break week for you? Do you need to win this week to avoid, you know,
if
thoughts of
I don't
selling
win this
off?
week, I think I will start to look at maybe selling some assets, right? I've gotten some inquiries already about certain players, which I think
Mhm.
is really insulting. That people are coming and offering me auction dollars or potential keepers for next year already. I think that's just I'll do what I've always done and leverage my future and hopefully
Mhm.
make a run towards the end of the season. I think in years past I've started somewhat slow like this before, but I see myself more as a wild card probably spot. But made a trade to get Devonte Adams.
Mhm.
Kind of betting on he lands somewhere such as the Jets or the Bills or even the Saints, so that he
Do you
kind of
think, oh, I'll ask Doug actually. I mean, in terms of the Devontae news, just since that's been the biggest news of the week, do you think Devontae landing with the Jets, does that, how, I just wonder if it's really going to make that much of a difference. Is Aaron Rodgers, like that chemistry that they have? Do you see that being a huge bolster to Devontae's value? Because right now, for every other Jets receiver, it hasn't done much.
I think it's got to give him at least a bump. I mean, the Raiders really are not very good. Um, I think they'll
Mm-hmm.
be scoring more wherever he goes, if it's New Orleans or the Jets. And if he does go to either of those teams with Carr and Rodgers with this history, I think they'll trust him and just kind of look to feed him the ball a little bit more, maybe than, Minshew
Mm-hmm.
would or any other team. But I don't know if his hamstrings really is hurt. That's something that could linger. But if it's more of like
Yeah.
a play to just kind of stay off the field until he gets moved, then maybe that's a great move. But I don't know. Those soft tissues injuries are always so tricky.
Yep. Yeah. John, what do
yeah,
you?
that's what I agree. I mean, I think it's more of a like I'm going to sort of sit this out until I get traded move. Uh, but if it's not, yeah, I probably am fucked. But moving off of Rashad White uh and Kittle was a kind of a bigger deal for me to depart with. Kittle's been great. Um, so far this year, but he's so brittle. It's just like every week it seems like he's close to being knocked out for an extended time. But uh homerism in me, I liked getting Komet back. His target share is rising, and he's looking better every week. So, I
Doug,
think it's like potential.
what are your thoughts on this trade? Who won this trade, do you think?
I think John did. I'm maybe biased, but I really don't think Rashad White is any good, and I think he's losing control of that backfield very quickly.
Yeah.
And Kittle, I mean, tight ends have been pretty bad across the board. Kittle's one of the better tight ends. I don't know what John's like. I don't know if he was starting Komet or not, but I mean, Kittle's pretty solid. But I think the best player in the deal is Adams, and if you get the best player in the trade, I think you win the deal.
I
Appreciate that.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I think I mean Kittle is maybe the one tight end this year. I mean I guess trying to think of who Bowers has been up and down a little bit as well. Kittle was hurt for a game, I think, too, right? But pretty much every game he's
Yeah,
played,
he missed
he's
a week.
been
There's really nobody has been very good at tight end.
yeah, yeah. But I have to agree. I think that if you get the best player in the deal, you probably win the trade. I don't hate it for like I think Rashad White's actually no, he's not doing great. So well, actually, he is
Well,
doing great.
he
He's
had
got
like a 50-yard run just in the
oh,
first
did
half,
he?
which
Okay,
helped out.
well, there you go. But yeah, I think Alec needs some help in his backfield. I don't, that was kind of my concern, I think, when we originally talked about it, and I don't know that this is the move that kind of gets him there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think Rashad White's the answer for him. I was okay with moving off Rashad White given
Yeah.
what Doug has mentioned about that backfield.
It's Bucking
And
Irving, Sanderson, baby.
yeah, and like I think one thing with Alec was that like he had, I think it was a let me remove one wide receiver so I'm not playing, each week like wide receiver roulette. He
Hmm.
chose the guys that he wanted and then was willing to move off of Adams. Um, which I think is like same thing for me with my running back situation. It's become, well, who's gonna go off? Like, of Jacobs and
Yeah.
Rashad White and um, J.K. Dobbins and DeAndre Swift, like who and I have Dowdle who's sort of coming up now. It's like, okay, I need to get rid of some of these people because I feel like I'm gonna pull Mike Rose and just make the wrong choice every time.
Okay. Enough. I'm gonna say this for Doug's benefit. I don't come in last place every year. In fact, I've never come in last place in this league. I came in third place one year. That was the best finish I had. Uh, Last year, I went all in. I bet big on guys like Pat Mahomes and Austin Eckler and Mark Andrews, who got hurt at the end of the year, and the team imploded. So I'm not a, I'm, you know, I'm just, I had to defend myself there. Okay.
No, I'm more referring to when you
I'm
had.
gonna hop off, guys. I'm gonna see
Okay.
if I get this guy down to bed, but I
All
Very nice.
gravy.
appreciate you
Ethan,
allowing me on.
Ethan, thank you for joining us. Doug, I guess it was nice to see you,
It
but
was, it was great.
we know who the real star of the show was. Thanks, Doug.
Take it easy, guys.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you for everything. Thank you for joining. You scared him away, man, with your little like your defensive rants. Uh,
It reached a boiling point.
it, I was referring to when you had Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott, and like
Oh
they
yeah,
both
that
were like the
sucked.
top like 3 quarterbacks in the league, but like each week one would go off and
One
he
would
just
go off.
kept like going back and forth, and it was the wrong one each week.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
frustrating. Uh, sure. All right. Let's get this back on track.
Yep.
It was great of Doug to join us. So yeah, a big shout out to Doug. First owner to bring a baby on the podcast.
I
So
believe so.
we're just sort of, shattering all sorts of glass ceilings
And
here.
great.
Babies are now welcome on the podcast. And Ethan did great, not a peep the whole time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, not an issue at all.
all right. We wanted to go through, I think, kind of quickly some of the injuries that had happened this week. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second because there were a ton of injuries. And I think
Oh yeah.
maybe at certain points we mentioned a couple of them. But John, who were the big injuries this week?
Yeah. Yeah. It's been, I feel like it's just an injury filled season. I don't know, like
Mhm.
if it's true. I don't know if that's necessarily, accurate as far as like there's more injuries, but it certainly feels that way. Yeah, Rasheed Rice getting kneecapped by his own quarterback. What an unbelievable play that was from Mahomes to throw that into like double coverage, trying to
Yeah,
force that
Pat
ball.
Mahomes is no longer a good fantasy football quarterback.
Oh,
Not only does he suck at fantasy football, he's a great real life quarterback, but he sucks at fantasy football. He's now taking out players that are actually having good seasons.
the best receiver he's had since Tyreek Hill. And he like I don't know why why are you trying to tackle? I mean, like
I
be
don't
like
know.
Tom Brady and just like no. Like it's not worth an injury to me try and save this, touchdown
Yep.
potentially, right? On an interception. It's crazy. And then
Yeah.
you dive into your own player. Oh man.
Yeah.
So he's on IR. That came out today. Neighbors got a concussion, which I
Hmm.
mean, if you've looked at his stats, like, I think Puka Nakua is like the only person to have more targets in their first 4 games
Hmm.
uh played. And Neighbors was just getting like, Daniel Jones throwing that ball over the middle of the field to Neighbors, like he's getting clobbered
Yep.
over and over and over. And yeah, it looked like he was knocked out before he even hit the ground, which that was crazy. Anthony Richardson, another quarterback, who's had some questionable, not decisions. I guess not sliding was a pretty dumb move, but I saw something where it was like he gets a head injury, right? And so they take him off the field to check for him, check
Hmm.
for like a concussion. And he comes back in, and the very next
Hmm.
play, they run like a designed quarterback run for him, which is just like nuts. Like he was just off the field because he was potentially injured, and their OC calls a designed quarterback run to put him back into harm's way. That was crazy. But and
Uh,
then Jonathan Taylor and Christian Watson are both
yes.
out with ankle injuries, so which are big
Yeah.
impact. That Packers wide receiver core is going off though. So
Yeah. It is hard to. It's hard. I mean, every Packers wide receiver, much to my chagrin, seems like a kind of attractive option at this point. Um,
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
The Even going back though, a couple weeks. I mean, I feel like, I don't remember. I'm trying to remember. We did the last show. What was that? Two? Was that 2 weeks ago?
yeah, yeah. After
Okay.
week 2,
So I mean, even, in week 3, we were looking at a lot of injuries. Mixon was out, McBride
Mhm.
missed a game. Um, that week, AJ Brown has been out.
Debo, yeah.
Debo's been out. It's been Eckler, who, was having he had a nice game before he got hurt. Um, Eckler got hurt again. I think even like Kamara was banged up last week, and going into it, Tank Dell has been out. Um, Evan Ingram's been out. And so it does feel like there's been a ton of injuries
Yeah.
throughout the
Cup,
season
Pacheco, Debo.
to
Yeah.
just really kind of like top end players.
Mhm.
So I doubt there's anybody's team in our league that hasn't been hit by the injury bug at this point. Um, Waiver wire, real quick, give a big shout out to Steve. Got his man, Wix, $41. Big ups to Steve for getting
I
Wix.
mean, I will say, like, so, Wicks, it seems to be he was the pickup of the week, right? That's
Mhm.
what I think, all of like fantasy football experts, pundits were saying was go get Wicks after
Yep.
Watson injury. He had I believe that he had a 25% target share last week. Um, sorry, excuse me. Trying to find where pretty interesting like set of stats for Wick. I had it up a minute ago. Um, but of going back to last year of games that Wicks has played in for
Mhm.
for the Packers, he's had more targets than anyone else on that Packers team.
Really?
So yeah, let me see if I can find that that little bit about that. But yeah, he's been an incredible force for them when he's on the field. But I think it's just the fact that there's so many other wide receivers that do get start ahead of them is kind of thing. So
Yeah.
trying to find it.
I don't. I was
Oh,
trying to
here
find
here it
kind of
is.
what you were talking about.
I've got it. Okay, so sorry everyone. Um, in the last 2 seasons, with Devontae Wicks on the field, uh, Wicks has had a 24% target share, whereas in that same span, whenever
Mhm.
Wicks is on the field, Reed has only had 17, Dobbs 16, Kraft 10, and Watson 2. Uh, Wicks is tied with Cooper Kupp for first in the NFL in expected fantasy points per route run amongst all wide receivers this season with a minimum of 50 routes run. So he's it seems like he could be a big game changer. And, to pair him with Nico Collins on
Mhm.
Steve's team, it actually just makes Steve that much scarier in my mind. Because he does have, AJ Brown. He'll come back probably after the bye week, and so to have those three guys that are all like big playmakers, target hogs, it seems like is it's quite scary. I mean, Nico Collins is on an incredible run right now. Apparently, he's on pace for over 2,000 yards already. So
Yeah, I mean, it's been crazy.
yeah, so shout out to Steve. went out and got the guy,
Yeah,
which was
he
cool.
did.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, he was the most bid on player this week. I think
Mhm.
7 teams put bids in. Doug was the next closest at $12, but Steve basically ensured that he was not gonna miss.
Yeah.
So he got his guy. The what else happened on the waiver wire? Who were the other big pickups? Let's see.
You dropped Scam
Oh,
Acres.
yes, I finally cut bait with Cam Akers. It was time to go. Cam had a great preseason game that attracted me right out of the gate, but clearly when they handed him the keys to the car, he was not ready to drive. Um,
Yeah.
so had to let him go. And I watched some of that game, the Houston Jacksonville game, and he wasn't all that impressive. It was yeah. So added Tracer Mon, which to be honest with you, I obviously nobody else bid, but I really thought Alec was going to bid uh, with Jonathan Taylor possibly being injured. Um, I thought Alec would go out and try and get Trey Sermon because nobody else in Indianapolis is getting carries besides Sermon and um,
Hmm.
Taylor. I just, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
I wonder if he was thinking that he wouldn't, miss time, right? I think there was still talk that maybe Taylor could play, but
I mean, maybe there
seems
was. I guess
very unlikely. And now he hasn't practiced the last 2 days, right? So he hasn't practiced
yeah,
Wednesday or Thursday. So, at that
yeah.
time you gotta, they're saying he's day to day, but like, you know, yeah, you gotta pick up backup if you have the money, which
Well,
sure Alec
so I'll
does.
be
So
honest. The reason I wanted to pick him up is just because if he does miss time, I'm trying to move guys right now. I don't know who my playable running backs are going to be in you know in a week, if that, and wanted if Taylor does miss time, wanted a starting running back on my roster, but for Alec. Yeah, we've already talked about his running back woes a little bit, and or sorry, we talked about his wide receiver woes, but in terms of like running backs, beyond, um, sorry, I'm switching it. We talked about his running back woes.
yeah.
Beyond Taylor, he just doesn't. He's got David Montgomery, but I really don't see much else out there. So I'll put this out as a plea to Alec or a suggestion to Alec. David Mixon, or
Joe
Joe
Mixon.
Mixon is available,
Yeah.
and Joe Mixon is available, and so is Tracer Mon at this point. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's all you put a couple guys out, I think Joe Mixon when he returns, it's always so interesting with Joe Mixon. I thought this would change after he left the Bengals, but maybe it's a Joe Mixon thing and not Zach Taylor. That's the Bengals coach's name, Zach
mhm,
Taylor.
mhm,
Like it was like a couple years ago, like they kept saying, "Oh no, he's fine, like it'll be fine." But then he kept missing games, and they never put him on
yeah.
IR, and it's just like, and like now it's like Mixon like practiced in some fashion last week, but then missed the game, and now he's not practicing at all. Like they could have just put him on IR. It makes no sense what's going on there. But yeah, I mean, once he's back, he'll be a great asset. So who else did
Well,
you toss out there? Goff and
I mean, Goff I tossed out as a joke. Goff might be on the waiver wire this week, depending on what happens with my team, because he's on a bye. But I put Mixon and Debo out there, but to be honest, just about everybody on the team outside of BTJ and Bucky Irving and probably Braylon Allen. I would like to hold on to Braylon Allen and see what happens. But just about everybody else is gettable. Not many of them are worth getting, but if you're interested in Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, honestly, Mixon might move and Debo might move by the time this podcast comes out. So we'll see. But if you're interested in those guys and they're still on my team, they are available. So is Mostert, I guess. Tony Pollard is available. However, he's on a contract right now that, depending on
He's
how
not
the
looking bad,
season, depending on how the season goes, might not be as, I thought it was going to be pretty player friendly, not team friendly. But he's on a $20 contract, which if this is kind of the version of Tony Pollard that we're going to get for the rest of the year, I don't think it's a bad deal. He's been pretty good.
Yeah, it seems like Tajay has not performed, kind of to that level yet, where it looks like he's, in danger of losing his spot. So
Tajay just isn't getting kind of I think last game when, the game was that game was a mess, the Titans Miami game. But
oh yeah.
I think last game he got his most carries. He got 15 carries. And he scored a touchdown, but that he was still pretty inefficient. He only ran for like 2.6 yards a carry. So Tajay just has not been very good this year. And Pollard's kind of the guy. He's getting the attempts and getting the snap count that I think a lot of people thought Spears might kind of inch into. Anyway,
Yeah.
enough about my team. What else?
Everyone, you heard it here first. Mike is offering up everyone, except for a few. But
this should come as no surprise. This team was drafted to be traded. That was always
and you got some good assets. Debo and Higgins, like those are. Debo's just a great piece. Higgins is a great depth piece. I'm sure, looking at the top of the league right now, which, this is the benefit of being at the top of the league, at this point, is you start to consolidate, some of your players and build out some depth, right? So, Jake and Steve and Ken, Theo and Theo's dad, Alec, and Porter, who's a sneaky 3-1. A very sneaky 3-1. Don't know if he has quite. He doesn't have quite as many points scored as those other top teams, but he's got some great pieces. But I'm sure he's also looking to add quite a bit of depth at the running back position, based on just like going through his team. He's got some great trade pieces for people there. So, but those top teams, I'm sure, are already reaching out to people looking to add depth like Debo and Higgins, and potentially Tyreek Hill, right?
Yeah.
From the other 0-4 team, so
Tyreek could be a piece that moves.
But
all right, let's see if there's any. Is there anything else we really need to hit? I think we had talked about possibly doing a little power ranking thing, but maybe instead of that, let's just
we'll save that.
Yeah, let's just take a look at the week ahead. We can highlight, maybe call out one or two matchups.
There's a couple other housekeeping things too.
Yes.
So Let's hit those and then end with the look ahead. So week 4 was our Bourbon Street prize. So team with the most TDs showing out gets $25, and that would be Jake Otro. He had
Yes.
8 touchdowns last week from his team, including a defensive touchdown by the San Francisco defense, which was awesome to see. And then just 3 touchdowns from Lamar, 2 through the air, 1 running, and then Kamara added 1. Amon-Ra St. Brown added a receiving touchdown
No,
and
he added
a throwing touchdown. Yeah,
yes, yeah,
passing touchdown. Yeah. So that Goff to St. Brown connection goes both ways. It's great. And then Fryermuth added a touchdown for him too. 8 touchdowns total coming for Jake. The next highest teams, it was 6, and I believe that was Doug and Peter potentially. Yeah, I would have to add them back up, but 8 was the total, the highest total. And so very impressive coming from Jake, who has taken the second season by storm. Give the guy a little bit of time to prep for a draft, and he is lights out so far. So it's been great. And then Steve gets booted off the island with 86 points, but got the win. So ultimately, not bad.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. Coming up though, I don't believe there is the weekly high. The next weekly prize is week 6, which is a weekly high. So there is no weekly high or weekly prize this week. Yeah, let's take a look ahead. So I think we got a couple matchups that we can look at. You listed 4 of them, John. Let's pick 2 and go at them. I don't think mine and Ken is really worth talking about.
I think there's two. The most interesting to me, right? Yeah, the college roommate battle, hilarious. I hope you give Ken a run for his money. It's not looking great, but I don't think you have your roster fully set yet.
I don't have
I don't think you
quarterback
have a quarterback
so,
in.
Yeah.
So there's that. So we'll come back to that. And then the other one was just Jake versus Bill. Undefeated versus another. Undefeated versus defeated.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting. But really,
however, we should say Bill's having a good week. Mike Evans is kicking ass right now. So
yeah, Drake London also putting up a decent amount of points, just 1 behind, but it's a good start, right? That's kind of what you need. Mike Evans also would be a great piece to add to someone's roster.
Yeah, for sure. But let's look at the Chicago-Milwaukee matchup.
Yeah. So we got Mr. Chicago and Alec and Steve hailing from up north, land of the cheese, Bears v Packers fandoms going at it.
The Chicago suburb known as Milwaukee. Yes. So I'm sorry, Steve. I didn't mean that. Milwaukee's a beautiful city. I love it. All right. I mean, this is a fun matchup, and I think that given the fact that the Eagles are on a bye, and really that the Eagles are on a bye. I mean, I like Geno Smith. I think Geno could put up some points in this matchup, but I'm leaning Alec, despite the kind of slow start that he had. Although I don't know that you can expect much more from Rachaad White at this point. So if he can finish this game with 8 or 9 points, I think that's probably about as much as you can hope from Rashad White, but I like Alec's chances in this matchup. I think he's got a real shot to win at this point. That said, that relies on Jonathan Taylor playing, which I don't know if that's going to happen right now.
Yeah, I as far as I am aware, it is very unlikely he is going to play, given he hasn't practiced yesterday or today, Thursday. And so then you're looking at putting in McLaughlin, the
I mean,
backup
that's
running
really
back.
his only option at this point. He
Yep.
didn't start
Yeah.
Algier tonight, which
yeah, I
wasn't
mean,
going to help him. But yeah, that's his only option.
but then you're looking at the other, sort of positional matchups here, right? Yeah, Josh Allen versus Gino. Josh Allen, he seems to be on a every other week situation here. If you look at his stats, 30 points, 9 points, 30 points, 7 points. So if you get a boom game from Josh Allen, that really does, that will help a lot. That can help overcome some of the running back issues that Alex is going to face here. And then looking at the wide receiver matchups, obviously Justin Jefferson is best in the biz. Ayuk's been really underperforming. Adding Kittle, I think is big help. But if the Niners show up and play, and the ball gets spread around, they're gonna get theirs. Ayuk will come back, right? And then you got DJ Moore.
I think the Niners show up and play. I think it's gonna depend on Arizona showing up and playing. I think if Alec is gonna get points out of Kittle and Ayuk, he's gonna need Arizona to. If San Francisco runs right over him, it's going to be tough for him to get points out of those guys, I think, because I don't know. I just don't trust Arizona at this point and their offense all that much, and they could fall behind early, and San Francisco could be in a place where they're kind of just leaning on Mason to run the clock out for a while. But yes, and then he's got DJ Moore,
who is playing Carolina, which, if you remember, was it last year or was that 2 years ago? Didn't he go off against Carolina?
I believe last year he did.
No, was that
last year
Carolina?
He did not went off. He did not go off against Carolina last year.
I guess I'm thinking of Washington.
That was Washington, who he has no real. There's no real big connection, I believe, to. Well, I guess he went to college and no, I'm not really sure what the connection was.
I mean, it's a revenge game.
In Maryland, but
I would have thought he would have played a little bit better, but
yeah.
That is what it is. But hopefully DJ Moore gets fed there. And but on the other side, I mean, hard pressed to find a better wide receiver trio at the moment. And Nico Collins, Wicks, and Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase has had a couple down games to start, but he's really picked it up since then. So, and Nico Collins is arguably the best wide receiver besides Justin Jefferson right now in the game. So,
yeah, I agree. I mean, Steve's wide receiving core is fantastic. I think we'll see what happens with AJ Brown. I don't know what his injury status is. So hopeful to return after the bye. That would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's been, right? So he got injured in practice, I think, after the first week. And then it sort of seems like the plan has always been for him to return in week 6 after their bye. So at that point, then, I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches for
at the receiver position, it's fantastic.
Yeah. His wide receiver, his running back situation is less, leaves a lot to be desired, but
I mean, I
He could
like
move
Cook.
somewhere.
I like Cook this year. I don't know if he's necessarily who you want as like a RB1, but I don't know that it matters all that much when you have those three wide receivers.
God, he also had Rashid
Najee,
Rice. I mean, like,
yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah,
That like
yeah,
he's got, yeah, you don't see it on the matchups, but he's, yeah, Rice is in the IR, and so is Jonathan Brooks. So like, depending on how when Brooks is able to ramp up, um,
What
it
did
could be. If you go to the
I'm
league
curious.
setting and then
Yeah,
scroll
there we go.
down, yeah.
And then I think we should wrap it up because we're already at an hour.
Mhm.
I am just curious though what Steve,
12
how
bucks
much he,
for Brooks.
no, I was curious for how much he
Oh,
paid for Rice. Yeah, he paid $10 for him. Yeah,
which, yeah, I mean, depending on how, what shakes out with, the legal issues, he
yeah,
might not, I mean, actually, it might be advantageous to keep him if like he gets suspended for, a season, but you give him a 3-year contract, like
yeah, yeah. It might work out.
you'd
Um,
have to keep him on your roster for the whole year, but like it could still
yeah,
be it could still make sense. But yeah, I think Steve
we'll
there
see.
has a good shot at winning this. And then yeah, the other matchup I thought was interesting was Peter and Josh's, the former champions matchups. But they've got the Jordan
Yeah,
Love and Justin Fields matchup going, and then uh, Peter's team's taking a lot of hits this year, so not sure if he's gonna be able to pull it out, but you know,
yeah.
can't
Peter's
count out
team's
can't count out. So
in a rough spot. But okay. I think we're gonna call it a show there. Um, great having Doug on the show. Really appreciate Doug jumping on here. And Ethan, of course, jumping on as
mhm.
well. Um, all right. Well, it's week 5. It went like that. Pretty unbelievable. We're about 1/3 of the way through the season already. Um, John, good show.
Oh, great
Good
show,
luck this
great
week.
show.
All right. For Brother
Oh yeah,
John, this has been the RTF show.
I'm coming for you, Fitz.